Now, I'm a massive fan of mech games and have always been intrigued in what direction Big Shots would take after a brief demo while at Gamescom back in 2023. The demo left me thinking, would it be more like a story-based action games where you and friends team up to save a planet, which it kind of still is, and I remember being quite impressed with its Borderland art style and bold use of colours. To be clear, I haven't tested multiplayer for this review because the servers aren't live. Obviously, playing nearly anything is better with friends. And to be clear, I never got access to the Quest version, which by the way is what I played at Gamescom, so I do expect in terms of visuals, it will be exactly the same experience. So when I first got into Big Shots in PSVR2, I was again impressed by the mech interior itself. If you look around the cockpit, it looks worn, solid, full of detail and gauges, as if you like cel-shaded graphics, which I do. And even though I just said solid, for some reason your arms and the world can pass through the cockpit at any time, like it's not actually there, which is a bit of an immersion breaker. But upon killing my first wave of enemies, I realised this is a roguelike. And it all felt pretty familiar very quickly, and it also felt a little bit average, especially when the game throws you back to the main screen after dying. I was a bit confused. I found myself looking round for the actual game inside the menu, but all you need to do is simply start the run again and away you go killing waves of enemies, which are in fact not that easy in the beginning until you earn more unlocks via levelling. And this is definitely to the game's credit. The game's balancing, I feel, is very on point to keep players coming back. So for the next 4 hours, I got further every time, and getting that balancing right must be pretty hard to do. The unlocks get pretty cool too. Your 2-barrel guns, for example, can change into a Gatling gun, a shotgun, and you get enhancements like extra weapon cooling, or if you use the flamethrower, you can have burn damage last for longer, or leave a trail of fire, and so on. And this is what I really like about the game, the unlocks and the difficulty, and I do believe it will be fun with friends. The issues I have start with variety. There is only one mech and 4 main weapons. As I said earlier, they do change while on the field, but as unlocks go, as a reason to keep playing, players might run out of a reason to keep coming back, if only to go further on each run. Around the 3-hour mark, I struggle to feel that urge you need to want to keep playing, which is pretty important in a roguelike, and again, it's not due to progression, it's the gameplay itself. There's something a little dull about it, and I think it's the aliens. They look pretty low detail, and if they looked a bit more realistic over the comic book style, and also looked to be physically hurt, say they lost limbs or they had bullet holes and blood, instead of what we have now, which is damage shown by numbers, I think it would have been a bit more engaging. Personally, I wanted to feel some sort of carnage unleashed by your new upgraded mech. I feel this is what would have kept me going. There's also some confusing choices right at the start in the tutorial. The turning is defaulted to some weird pull the world mechanic by pressing a button either on the left or right controller.
Get moving. Alright, let's dive into the art of mech turning. To do this, grab the right controller and swipe your hand to the side while holding the highlighted button. Release the button once you're done,
which thankfully can be changed after the tutorial. If the game would have stayed with this control method, I honestly don't think I would have made this video, as it really makes no sense to me since joysticks have now been invented and we have click turning for those who need motion comfort. The jump button is a lever between your legs, which is probably a great idea on paper, and it isn't so bad until you come up against an enemy that requires you to shoot them from the air all the time, meaning you can only use one gun. And I couldn't help but think, why can't we just push in a button or the left or right stick, for example? But I got on with the job and then was met with some low frame rates at some random points, falling through the world a couple of times, which doesn't actually affect gameplay progression as you'll simply drop back into the level, and the enemy AI sometimes couldn't figure out how to get to me, which meant I had to seek them out. They were either stuck behind walls or lower or upper levels, so I had to find them to move on to the next wave. My mech also got stuck a couple of times, and that really is game over if that happens. I expect there will be a day 1 patch, as most games do these days, but I can only report on what I've played so far. So after unlocking new upgrades and some customization, I felt myself sigh outwards when it came to doing the first level all over again, which shouldn't actually happen in a roguelite, especially only after a few hours. You see, in games like the Light Brigade or many others, I wanted to go back each time, to improve my playstyle with the experience I'd learned of the game. But in Big Shots, I struggled to feel like the game had that essential pull. It's simply shoot and move over and over again. There is supply drops that you have to protect to get extra health and coins, which keeps things interesting, but the bosses, so far at least, all look the same. So within 4 hours I had a decent loadout of perks, of which you can equip 6 of them, and I didn't feel like buying anything else. And that only left me with paint jobs and customising the look of the mech, which is obviously only beneficial to being online, as you can't see what's changed while in the mech aside from colour. And that leaves you with only one thing left to enjoy, and that's the shooting. I do believe this will be better with friends, and you will get a good 5 to 10 hours of gameplay out of it, especially if you love shooting and collecting coins. But there isn't enough game for me to want to play after this review. It's a good game, but falls short of being great, with games like Vox Machina, Underdogs and the such that have tons of customizations, mechs, multiplayer, and a decent single player that makes each run feel a little different. I don't think Big Shots delivers as a high recommendation for roguelike players. So to summarise, I did have fun for a short time. I like the graphics and believe it will be good online with friends. Just don't expect to go in there and be wowed by anything. It's a good game that falls a little short on gameplay excitement and variety. Thanks ever so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and remember, if you pick this game up and you enjoy it or you don't enjoy it, let others know down in the comments.